It's not what you thought it was, though. It's never that crack. It's always something different. Let everybody come into the show for just a second here. Let this microphone breathe, get the system up on all platforms, and away we go. Wednesday, June 19th means it's time for another edition of MHI. And no Tom tonight, but his loss is your gain, as we have DVA, our very own Dylan Von Arks, one half of OBV with Ron White every Saturday night at 6 p.m. joining me. Dylan, what's up, man? Welcome back to MHI, where you are now a regular on this show.
Yeah, man, I'm actually filling in twice this week, so you'll see my beautiful face 3 times this week.
Oh, that sounds like a good time for a plug. Where else can we catch you?
I'm going to be filling in for Dove Valley Deep Divers, and I will be on my regular show OBV on Saturday.
Boom. So if you don't get enough Dylan tonight on Wednesday night on MHI, you could tune in on Friday night, 6 p.m. And then again on Saturday night, 6 p.m. You're getting the triple crown in Dylan Von Arks, one of our very own. Dylan, I really appreciate you joining the show, man. It's been a little bit, been about a month or so, I think, since you and I, or before the draft even, before we've got to chop it up. A lot has happened. As the draft is passed, training camp is right around the corner. The Broncos are on technically a little bit of a break, but there's no offseason. There's no dead season ever here in Broncos country.
No, never, man. We keep the conversation moving as best we can, and hopefully we get some news here and there. Hopefully good news, because around this time it's usually arrests and stuff like that. So hopefully just good stuff, man. Maybe some charity stuff and whatnot.
Yeah, it's always good to see those Denver Broncos out in the community. They have a rich history of that. However, the Broncos also have a rich history of some trouble too, right? So when you're talking about those arrests and stuff like that, news you don't want to see, and we're not seeing any of that. Let's knock on some wood, at least on social media right now. In Kansas City, things are a little bit different, right? And I won't go into all that, but it's tough, man, when you see some of that news. But there is some news out of Broncos country today. I think the Broncos are getting themselves a new D lineman, or at least they're trying to. There's a defensive lineman from the UFL. Apparently he's a champion now that league has been wrapped up. What do you know about this new defensive lineman, as I feverishly type into my search bar and try to introduce him to Broncos country?
So for what I'm gathered, Dondre, I believe it's pronounced, Dondre Tillman. He was the highest graded defender by PFF in 2024 with a 93.6. He had 56 tackles, 5 sacks, 8 quarterback hits, so on and so forth. And their best defender, and he won a championship this year with the Birmingham Stallions. If I could get some all-22 on the UFL, that'd be great. But I'm not sure that's out there or not. So hopefully he can add to this edge room.
That's a good breakdown, Dylan. I mean, really good off the bat. I'm putting you on the spot. 26 years old, right? 6'3", 270 pounds, originally from Virginia. Looks like he played college in Indiana. He was a 2022 round 3 draft pick. I'm not too familiar with which team grabbed him, but sometimes you see this. It could be a long journey to the NFL, and you do see some success stories. I think that's a little bit of a formality right now. He has to technically be released from his current professional football league before he can join the NFL. But based on everything I'm reading over in social media, it seems like that's just a formality. And Dondre Tillman, defensive end from the Birmingham Stallions, should be coming to Denver.
Yeah, we need some diversity in the room. And like I said, not super familiar with him. Hopefully he can add some more dimension to this pass rush, because we have a lot of guys who are quick and are good off the edge, but the run game, not so much. Maybe that's a George Payton archetype right there. Is good off the edge, not so much against the run. So hopefully he brings a little more to the table than that.
Well, that's what Rip's saying. Rip's like, look, man, more of an edge rusher. Rip's obviously done a little bit of homework on this new cat. And what's your opinion overall? Before we're going to get into Bo Nix, we're going to get into Jarrett Stidham, we're going to get into some of Mark Schlereth's comments. But I know, at least for me, Dylan, it could be a little monotonous looking at some of these other professional football leagues, and it's hard for me to want to invest in watching them. It's not hard for me to want to invest in scouting or trying to figure out who these guys are if I have the time and the ability. But it's hard for me to commit because I just don't know how long these leagues are going to be around. I don't know if these guys are going to be bouncing back and forth from the CFL, the NFL. What's your overall take on the NFL and the competitors, if you will, in the other professional football leagues?
Well, we're getting the new kickoff rule because of the new league, so there's a big plus there. Or we'll see if it's a plus. I'm sure it will be because I'd love to see some more play time from special teams and guys getting more opportunities. That's always a good thing. Those end of the roster guys, but in terms of paying attention to those leagues, not so much. You see the highlights here and there. I don't really follow them. I'm more, if I'm not watching NFL, I'm a big pro wrestling guy. So I kind of stick to that when we're in the off season, but obviously follow the Broncos. But when it comes to I believe it's just the UFL now is that it? Yeah. I don't really follow too closely there.
I'm the same way, and I think a lot of NFL fans are. And I know Michael's a professional wrestling fan. I've seen him over on X. Michael Branquillo. Good evening, Luke and Dylan on the Mile High Insiders, and go Broncos. What's up, Michael? Appreciate the love all the way out there from scorching Arizona. Here's something I do know. I know Wade Phillips. That name is a little familiar here in Broncos country. Former head coach, former defensive coordinator, Super Bowl 2015 champion, Super Bowl 50 rather. 76 years old. He gets the championship, right? Is his team won in the UFL? Do I have that right, or did he?
I think he was on the losing end of that.
Was he? Oh no, son of bum on the losing end of the UFL. Either way, man, it's interesting to see guys get second, third chances. Sometimes you get these guys that have been pretty long in the tooth in the NFL, and they have success over there. Sometimes you get up and comers. I mean, it's truly a mixed bag over there at the UFL.
Yeah, you hear stories, especially of the Brahmas quarterback who I think they lost like 36-0. It was pretty ugly, but he was within a half yard or a yard of the first down, and he slid. And he was making business decisions because he evidently has a tryout or a spot secured with an NFL team. So that's where things can maybe get weird. You know how you see college players pull out of bowl games and whatnot. Maybe a similar thing there. Hard to say.
Yeah, you see him pull out of bowl games. I know Scott and I, we've seen him pull out of all-star games. They're standing there on the sidelines at the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Game. Just you got to make business decisions, but at the same time, man, if you're in the playoffs, if you're like your team is counting on you, those are some tough waters to maneuver in. A lot like the subject of our show tonight. QB1 for the Denver Broncos. Anyone and everyone has an opinion about the Denver Broncos, specifically about their quarterback. Now, Dylan, I wasn't super high on Bo Nix. That was very well known all over my Twitter before the draft. Since then, I'm getting on the bandwagon. I'm excited. I'm curious. I want to see Bo Nix start week 1, bar none. No ifs, ands, or buts. Real quick, let's get your reaction to Bo Nix becoming a Denver Bronco. We talked about quarterbacks before the draft. The draft is done. What was your initial reaction when the Broncos drafted Bo Nix in the first round?
And so, obviously, I've grown to like the pick more. But at the time, I guess the best I described it was whelmed. Not overwhelmed, not underwhelmed. It's just right here in the middle. I've been pretty consistent with saying, yeah, I like him. I don't love him. But, that's Sean Payton's guy. Am I going to be mad that he took him? No. If that's his guy, go get him. He fits your system. There's a lot of good things about him, Very heady quarterback. He's got some mobility as well. Arm strength good enough. I like him. And as time's gone on, and I say this about the games too. Obviously, if I'm picking the Broncos, I'm like, I don't think the Broncos are going to win this game. I'm still going to be rooting for him. I'm going to be rooting for Bo Nix to go up there and light it up, even as a rookie. So I didn't hate the pick. So I think that's something I just put out there.
Well, and look, man, I think everyone's entitled to their opinion and their feelings, but usually we can let those feelings settle down just a little bit. It's, June 19th now, the draft is over. We've had a little bit to digest what Bo Nix being in the first round means for Denver thus far. We haven't got too far with it, but I would say that Broncos country is curious right now about Bo Nix. They're hopeful. I don't think real Broncos fans are the ones that are out there with pitchforks and lanterns on their way to Broncos headquarters to storm the building and ask Sean Payton why he draft Bo Nix. Those are all the cats that seem way too stubborn to say I was right about prospects rather than let's see, let's find out. I'm right and wrong every single year. I'm more wrong than I am right usually in the NFL draft, and that's just being honest. Anyone who tells you otherwise, they might be fudging the truth just a little bit. It's so damn hard to figure out who these quarterbacks are going to be in the NFL. And three-time Super Bowl champion Mark Schlereth, right? You can hear him on the Denver airwaves here in the Rocky Mountain Mile High City. You could see him on Fox Sports commentating games in the NFL. He went on record in his very own episode of the Stinkin' Truth podcast and had some very revealing comments about Bo Nix. You can read about this over at milehighhuddle.com. Our guy Keith Cummings has an article up right now, and Keith is just an absolute dog. And Dylan's got some articles up. You guys have been killing it this offseason, so huge tip of the cap. Mark Schlereth said, quote, "If Bo Nix isn't your starter, then did you miss on drafting Bo Nix? Everything they said coming out of the draft was Bo Nix started 61 games, has a supercomputer as a processor, is incredibly accurate, was the best college red zone QB in the nation, had the best completion percentage, and never fumbled while at Oregon." So you kind of read between those lines, between Mark Schlereth's comments about whether or not it should be perceived as a miss if Bo Nix doesn't start. Then again, I'm hearing that Jarrett Stidham looks a lot better than everybody else out there. I mean, you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt, Dylan, because you got to figure out, one, who's it coming from? Two, are they out there and actually seeing it? And three, is this real football? It was minicamp. What say you about Mark Schlereth's comments about Bo Nix and seemingly wanting him to start day one?
I have said almost exactly what Mark Schlereth is saying. It's so we, plenty of fans in the chat here and then all over, Broncos country. Nix has a supercomputer. He's a genius. He gets the ball out quick. He can throw the deep ball. It doesn't matter about his arm strength. All this other things. And then some of the same people are saying, well, he doesn't have to start week one. Okay, then why'd you take him 12th overall? This is Peyton's guy. This is all I'm hearing is Peyton's guy. Amazing brain. Gets the ball out quick. And we're a little worried about, maybe we should be gentle. Maybe we shouldn't start in week one. Baloney. He needs to start week one, in my opinion. I think he's had enough. Obviously, college doesn't translate directly to the NFL, but he's had 61 college starts, like you mentioned. He's got everything Peyton wants. What's the hesitation there? I'm especially with quarterbacks. If you don't have it if you don't start within the first 8 games to a year, I start to get a little worried these days. Quarterbacks are throwing more than ever from high school to QB camps to college and then into the NFL. So quarterbacks are coming out as much of a finished product as they can be these days. So especially with all the praise that Nix has got, I would be pretty shocked if he's not the starter. Upset, really.
I'm right there with you, Dylan. Like, I couldn't have agreed with you more. And as much as I want to create a good show full of drama, and Tom and I are usually yelling and screaming at each other, I can't really push back there. Now, look, Sean Payton, he's a sneaky guy, and Doug knows that. Doug weighing in real quick. No way Stidham is starting week one. I don't know, man. I hate to say there could be an avenue. There could be a way that happens. And Tom has brought it up. Others have brought it up on social media. It's a conversation worth having. Week one on the road in Seattle. That is a tough place to play. There's a philosophical question that can be asked, and it's who gives you the better chance of winning that game? And to be honest with you, Dylan, I'm not so sure that question matters, because are we looking at just the 2024 week one regular season game on the road against the Seattle Seahawks? Is that going to be the end all be all? No. But look, it shouldn't be the reason that Bo Nix shouldn't start. You can't ease a starting quarterback into this league. That just doesn't happen. So I do think there could be a little bit of sleight of hand going on with Sean Payton. What do I mean by that? Sean never likes to give people the full version of what's happening, whether that's in front of them at practice, whether that's behind closed doors. I think he likes to distract and detour whenever he can. Some Mike Shanahan shades of Sean Payton there, and he's just ultra competitive. I think he's probably got some paranoia, like a lot of head coaches do, but I could see him pumping Jarrett Stidham up this training camp, this offseason, trying to catch the league a little off guard by Bo Nix. Now, Bo Nix isn't going to come in and be the second coming of Pat Mahomes. I don't think. Maybe he will. I don't know, Dylan. But I could see Sean Payton playing some shell games with the rest of the AFC West, more importantly, on Jarrett Stidham is our guy, at least for now.
Yeah, and I kind of get it. You know, you hear Stidham has a leg up in the QB competition. I really don't know if it's a competition. We'll see how that comes out. But he's had a year in this system, and you know it's understandable. He should be ahead. You know, he's had time with these guys. So if it's so close, maybe we shouldn't be so happy about Stidham being the starter. And I sure wouldn't be if that's the case. It's not. I don't have anything against Jarrett. I think he's a solid quarterback. I think he's the best kind of backup that you could have. But when you take a quarterback 12th overall, has everything you want, hearing all this praise about how smart he is, I think you have to start him. I just don't really believe that there's a true competition. I think unless Bo Nix totally like stinks it up in training camp, I really think it's his job to lose.
Look, Sean said, I think you're right. Sean said these things tend to work themselves out or sort themselves out. I think people are looking at Sean Payton in an opposite way than they should. They're thinking he's going to go conservative. When was the last time Sean Payton did anything conservative for the Denver Broncos? Wait, right now, maybe? I guess that case could be made right now with Courtland Sutton. You don't really know what's going on right there. You're just kind of wishy-washy. You're keeping him in-house, but he's not really in-house. I don't know, man. I don't know how you sell tickets to Broncos country with Jarrett Stidham. I don't know how the richest ownership group in North America, probably the world, sits back and watches this rookie just ride the bench. I don't know how they do that, especially when they're making millions of dollars of investments, not only with this club, but with the team, with the stadium, with the practice field. I mean, training camp's going to look a little different this year, folks. There's construction going out there right now. I still have a conspiracy hat on. With that, I think I could see a realistic scenario, Dylan, where Sean Payton maybe gets a few extra closed practices without the public there because of construction, right? Nobody wants to let their secrets out. Nobody wants to know what's going on with Bo. I got in trouble from the PR team for a quick little video. Very first thing, my interaction, whatever, with Sean and this new regime last year was getting an angry email from a stretching type video. I mean, it is so strict over there. It makes me feel like Sean Payton's trying to just keep everything in-house. Sooner or later, we got to see this kid play football and figure out if he's the real deal. Now, Sean can gloat about him as much as he wants. He could take all the victory laps after the draft saying we got our guy and we fooled everybody else. But it's all for nothing if we don't see this young man start week one. I am right there with you. There is no excuse not to other than injury.
Yeah, and the whole notion that quarterbacks need to sit for a while, I think that's kind of been disproven. Besides, I think you could think of maybe Josh Allen was the last one where he had to sit for a little while before he got some starting time. And other than that, I mean, you know, yeah, Mahomes for a year, but we don't have an Alex Smith sitting in front of Bo Nix. I don't think there's really there's no entrenched veteran starter that's sitting in front of Nix that's going to stop him from starting.
What about Zach Wilson? What about Zach Wilson, Dylan? I'm hearing all these crazy reports. Zach Wilson is going to be the guy, and Zach Wilson is taking first-team reps. What do you make of all that, Dylan? Because like you, I see you laughing right now. You could tell I'm obviously being a little facetious. I mean, Zach Wilson, come on. That's just kind of a wild card kicking the can down the road. There's no way Zach Wilson starts week one.
No, and you know, he's got arm talent. He's got some mobility. Those are things I liked about him coming out of the draft when he did. And Broncos obviously didn't have a shot at him, and probably for the best. You know, it's between the ears, and I think we're seeing some shell shock and seeing ghosts kind of similar to Sam Darnold. That Jets franchise loves to kill their quarterbacks apparently, and it doesn't help when you get Nathaniel Hackett, especially this last year. But I do view him on the same trajectory as a Sam Darnold. Hey, come into Denver, ride the bench for a little bit, clear your mind, just observe, sit under a coach who knows offense well, and just take a year, reset and reload, and maybe he'll get shifted off somewhere else. Like you see Sam Darnold going to the Vikings. He's got a starting job now. Now, I'm not saying Zach Wilson will get that, but I think it's a similar process in terms of, hey, just chill out for a year.
Just chill out for a little bit, like our guy Phil McLaughlin is always chilling with us on Wednesday nights. Good evening, Luke, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. If the defense is improved, my only question will be Vance Joseph. Will his defense get 6 or more turnovers this year? Phil, man, Phil's been riding with us for a long time, as you have, Dylan, with Vance Joseph, man, and Tom and I can't figure it out. I know you've tried figuring it out. It's something I try to stay away from because it just makes me mad. If I'm going to be honest, Dylan, this Broncos defense, I think this Broncos defense has been the strength for so long, but it has become such a vulnerability as of late to not be able to stop the run. Let's start there, Phil. I mean, we can't stop the run, and we're going to hope for some fumbles. I don't know. Hope for some interceptions from Pat Surtain. You don't have Justin Simmons in house anymore, who was your ball hawk safety. What's Caden Stearns going to look like back there, right? What's new guy going to look like from Miami? What, Brandon Jones, right? What's he going to look like? I mean, man, can they get 6 or more turnovers this year? That could be asking for a lot. However, Phil, sometimes you get those gift wrapped just a little bit, right? Gift wrapped a little bit from other teams. Now, I don't think Pat Mahomes is going to be throwing any pick sixes out there. Justin Herbert should be taking a next step with Harbaugh. But when you look at what's going on with the Las Vegas Raiders over there, maybe you could sneak out some turnovers there. Bottom line, I do not feel confident with Vance Joseph as the defensive coordinator, and I can't help but wonder if Sean Payton is using him a little bit as a potential scapegoat this season.
Yeah, I think we kind of knew once Sean Payton was announced as head coach, the identity of this team was going to shift from defense to offense. And obviously last year, a little rough on both sides, more than a little rough in some cases. But there's kind of a grace period, we got the transitions happening right now. Sean Payton's getting his guys in. And like I've mentioned numerous times before, last year wasn't fully Sean Payton's team. Obviously, he took over, but he had one free agency class and one draft class. That's not fully his team yet. That's not his vision realized yet. It's going to take a couple of years, and you might see a similar thing this year. But I think now that he has his quarterback, we're going to move more towards that offensive direction. Obviously, defense is going to take a little bit of a dip, especially when Vance Joseph is the one calling the plays. I think Jim Leonard's going to step in there in short order if VJ doesn't get his stuff together. I want to use a much worse word, but I just think we're seeing that shift happening. So hopefully we see at the very least some consistency with the offense this year, and we'll see what happens with defense. Like you mentioned, safeties, especially that secondary. Who's going to be CB2? Who's going to step up at safety 2? I know we got Brandon Jones, but he was the third safety on Miami for most of the time. He wasn't starting. That's similar to Caden Stearns when we had Simmons and Kajak here. Caden Stearns was the third safety, and he played great, but we haven't been able to see what he's capable of because he's been hurt.
Exactly. Well, and Jaquan McMillan was an absolute dog, right? But I don't know that I love him strictly as a corner. I'd rather prefer him in that nickel role where he can roam just a tad. And he was such a really surprising complimentary piece. And those of us that were out there last summer could see it like, oh, there's some flashes with this young guy. But then during one-on-ones, he was just clearly out of place so many times. He lost a step more than once when it comes to guarding guys like a Courtland Sutton or Lil Jordan Humphrey. Even I think he's a more natural nickel. But before I get into turnovers, Phil, with Vance Joseph's defense, I just ask, what's the identity of Vance Joseph's defense? Who's the leader? We could say Pat Surtain's the best player. Doesn't mean he's effectively a leader. It's also very hard for a cornerback to be the signal caller or thump in the chest to be the undisputed alpha dog of that defense. Now, it doesn't mean it can't be done. Everybody wants to reference Champ Bailey, and Champ Bailey was a captain for many years. However, he also served with co-captains on that defense that were absolute dogs. Elvis Doomerville comes to mind, and looking at this team, man, I'm looking at a John Franklin Myers from the Jets, Jets. He may be one of those guys with attitude this year. He's really excited to meet Broncos country out there. But before we can get into Vance Joseph's defense, man, we got to try to figure out a little bit that identity. It could be something that could ultimately be timely. Lawrence Rivera, our guy Larry, Tea Time with Larry coming in here. What's up, guys? I am back, and my little one Leia had her second birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Leia. We went bowling till 11, but hopefully Sean can stay up as late as my daughter last night working to fix the Broncos. That's awesome, man. We're huge into birthdays and shout outs, so happy birthday to Leia. I love that. Huge Star Wars name, right? We end every podcast. This is the way, Mandalorian style on this. Mm-hmm. So being Luke, man, of course, we got to give Leia a shout out.
Yeah, happy birthday, Leia. That's awesome. I have a bunch of little cousins, so I'm big on family. They try and wrestle me all the time, even though I can't. They overpower me a lot of the time. There's too many of them. But love the family, and we hope Sean Payton's staying up to work on these Broncos because this is his legacy on the line.
Well, that's interesting, Larry, that you bring that up, because I kind of wonder what life is like for Broncos head coach Sean Payton right now. What are you doing? Like, are we on vacation? Are we in the office every single day? Are we part-timing it? Are we working on location? I mean, I'm not suggesting anything. I have no clue. I know that Sean Payton loves to work hard. He's got a reputation for grinding. He's obsessed with this profession that is the NFL. But it does make you wonder a little bit, like, what does Sean Payton's day look like on Wednesday, June 19th? Is he picking up the phone? And we know George has been working the phones trying to sign our new D lineman from the UFL, right? I mean, what is Sean's day looking like after mini camp breaks? What do you imagine that be like, Dylan? I mean, you show up to the building, you make sure your staff is good. Are you taking attendance? Are you watching film? What are you trying to do if you're Sean Payton on Wednesday, June 19th?
Well, hopefully it's a healthy balance, because you do need your rest. You need your time away from the game. And obviously this is a team he's trying to build up, and we're in year 2. This is where he starts to kind of really see his vision start to get realized. I'm sure he's happy he doesn't have to talk to any media for a little while.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I hope he's working hard to get these guys organized. I know some of the quarterbacks and the wide receivers are on their way to do their own stuff kind of in the off season, and you hope you see some of that with Sean Payton as well, whether it's tweaking the playbook or even just looking at some guys who are free agents or some spots that they need help at, and just continue to look around.
Well, you're exactly right. The quarterbacks and the wide receivers, they're probably getting their own workouts in, as are the rest of the team. But correct me if I'm wrong, I've heard a rumor, at least it's out there, and for whatever it's worth, Jarrett Stidham is the guy that organized this throwing camp in his hometown. I imagine Bo Nix will be there. I imagine the wide receivers will be there. Zach Wilson will be there. Courtland Sutton, I don't know. Is Courtland Sutton going to be there? But when I talk about that and you start thinking about it, and you see this all over the league, right? I saw videos this morning of when the tight ends all got together, tight end U with George Kittle and Dak Prescott came in. It makes me wonder a little bit. Okay, Jarrett Stidham is organizing this throwing session, these off-season workouts, if you will, before training camp. Does that mean he's the starter?
No, I think it means he's taking initiative because he knows he could be on the outside looking in at the starting job. And, I'm sure Bo will have his own little thing, whether it's announced or not. But, yeah, we've heard of this organized thing from Stidham. Get more chemistry. That's all well and good. He needs every advantage he could get because, like you said, he is going to get replaced. If it's not this year, which it should be, it'll be next year because he knows that Bo Nix was taken in the first round. He knows Sean Payton loves him. And he's playing to prove to not just the Broncos, but to any other teams who might be interested either this season or down the road that he is a hardworking quarterback and he's willing to put in the work.
Well, and maybe he's eyeing that backup position. Maybe there's a competition that nobody's talking about. Everybody's looking at QB1 right now, but who's going to be QB2? I mean, what if Zach Wilson starts to step it up a little bit and sneaks by Jarrett Stidham? I mean, I start thinking about a Jarrett Stidham organized throwing session and what that means for Bo Nix, because it's almost like you training your replacement, right? You want them to do well, but you don't necessarily want them to do better than you, because that means that you're out of a job. So it's that age-old question. I mean, is there true information sharing? Is there a little bit of withholding? I don't think Jarrett Stidham's going to try to sabotage Bo Nix. That is not what I mean by this. Everybody says Jarrett Stidham is the best guy ever. I haven't been around him. I haven't talked to him, but he has a pretty good reputation in that locker room. So much so that you have a starting right tackle like Mike McGlinchey going out there before the draft saying, we're going to ride with Jarrett Stidham. Now, he should have said that just to cover his bases in case the Broncos didn't draft a first-round quarterback, or even if they did, Jarrett's your starter. He's the incumbent. It's a respected position. He finished the season with the Broncos last year. That locker room does like him. But you know what that locker room really likes? New contracts. How do you get new contracts? You win football games and you produce. So they ultimately want the guy that's going to be QB1. I hope it's Bo Nix. You hope it's Bo Nix. It's on Bo to figure this out. Now, maybe Sean Payton said, hey, Jarrett, I need you to organize something. You know, because if you're Bo Nix, how can you do it, right? You're probably a little overwhelmed with everything. You're moving to a new state. You're getting adjusted into life as an NFL quarterback. It would be easier to have a teammate with you that sets these things up. Maybe that's what's happening. Phil weighing back in. Thank you so much, Phil, for joining Dylan Scott and I tonight. Guys, based on what moves have been made since season end, what area has improved the most? Defense, offense, or special teams?
You know, personally, and it's a specific unit on the defense for me, it would be the defensive line. You bring in John Franklin Myers and Malcolm Roach. I think those are two really solid additions to that defensive line who's been, especially on the interior, who's been battered by the run game. And that's why you see Alex Singleton getting 1 million tackles a season, because they're breaking through the line. Yeah, I think Franklin Myers will give Zach Allen a lot more opportunities. He started a little slow last season, and then he worked his way up and played very well towards the middle to end there. And he won't be getting bullied as much if you got John Franklin Myers on the other side. And that means DJ Jones could probably play his more natural spot. And so adding one guy, you could move, in John Franklin Myers, you can move some guys around. And then in rotation on early downs when you think they're going to be running, or you know they're going to be running, you got Malcolm Roach, who's good at stuffing the run, not so great as a pass rusher necessarily, but he's in there for that rotation. So I think the defensive line overall is the most improved group.
Interesting. I'll push back just a tad because it's the most important position in all of sports, and that's quarterback. The Broncos addressed that. Whether or not they made the right move, I don't know that yet, Phil. I'm still that waits. That's to be determined. But I can tell you, I would have been crushed, absolutely crushed, if the Broncos walked away without a quarterback in that first round. Now, it didn't have to be just any guy, but I needed Sean Payton and this Broncos organization to show some sort of commitment to the position. It's one thing to trash Russell Wilson and send him on his way. We all know what a disaster and circus that was. But I do think it's encouraging that Sean cut that bait. It was hard. It was a hard thing to do. It's hard to do some controversial moves, especially when the spotlight is on you in year one. And Sean seemingly doesn't really care what everybody else thinks, and I respect him for that. Whether or not it's always the right or wrong thing, can be debated. But to say Russell Wilson is not the future of our franchise and be willing to cut that dead cap, to be willing to get just attacked with all the vitriol for screaming and yelling at him in Detroit, to be second guessed about drafting Bo Nix. I like the fact that there's finally been a head coach in here who's doing it his way. I don't know that it's going to work. I hope it does. I like Sean Payton, but it doesn't mean I don't question all of his moves. Some of his moves. Vance Joseph, what are you doing? Courtland Sutton, what are you doing? I mean, we've got to figure some things out on this team, but drafting a quarterback to me means that the offense improved. Even if Russell Wilson was just gone, that's an improvement to me. And I'm not being facetious. I do think that there was this dark cloud hanging over Broncos HQ, and that was the celebrity that was Russell Wilson. That is no longer there. Now you have a young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed Bo Nix, and I hope he's ready to work.
Yeah, Russell Wilson's gone. He's with Pittsburgh. He'll find a new corny catchphrase. I'm sure if they win week 1, he'll say "Steele got it" or something like that. But yeah, I agree with you to a point where maybe you do upgrade that quarterback position because you can finally, and by you I mean Sean Payton can run the offense that he wants to run. He had to limit himself so much with Russell Wilson, and while I don't expect Knicks to break, because Russell had what was it, 26 touchdowns last season. That'd be a pretty good season for a rookie. Do I necessarily think he's going to get there? That's hard to say. We'll see if we have more of a run game to kind of help him out this year, like we didn't last year.
That's a concern too, by the way, Dylan. I'm hearing some crazy whispers, as you are, out there at Broncos HQ. Maybe Javante's not looking the same. Maybe Javante, Samaje Perine, some of these veteran backs, maybe those two specifically, are on the outside looking in.
Could be, especially with Audric Estime coming in, mirrors Javonte Williams pretty well, and same with Blake Watson. He kind of mirrors Jaleel in a sense too. So that'll be interesting. And we talked about commitment to the quarterback position with taking Knicks. There hasn't been a commitment. His offensive tackle. We haven't drafted one since Bowles. It's insane. And you hope you get a developmental guy. We have 2 undrafted rookies in Crum and his name is escaping me right now.
Well, Frank's my guy because he's Wyoming, right? Mm-hmm. So I've got this love for Wyoming right up the road from me here in Colorado. So I'm already kind of counting on Frank Crum just because I'm a fan and a homer, right? Just totally unrealistic and unreasonable, but it's ultimately on them. And you're right, Dylan. I mean, sooner or later, you've got to draft and develop. That's what's plagued the Broncos for so long. And they are not addressing the O-line. That has been an issue. Tom and I, it seems like we're just bothered by it every Wednesday night when we're wondering what are our options at the center position. And there's an article up right now over at milehighhuddle.com talking about what that could look like. You can pay right tackles until the cows come home. It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to work out for you. I was super disappointed in Mike McGlinchey last year, Dylan. I know you were too. Hell, I can get after Ben Powers even. I thought Bennett Powers was going to be coming here and be an absolute force. I thought the Broncos could be looking at 2 of the better guards in the NFL. I'm not going to say the best, but maybe a top 10 guard unit, and really didn't get that. So while I'm excited for Bo Nix, while I want him to start, while I want him to take these steps, he may be limited with some of the tools that he's working with. But again, the league waits for no one. Our guy WJB coming in here. What's up, guys, from across the pond? Tell me if anyone looks like they're going to be on their way out before week 8. And anyone we might be willing to get before then. I don't know what's going on with Courtland Sutton. I really don't. Dylan, you hear me scream and complain about it every Wednesday night. I just do not understand why you wait, why the Broncos wait, why Courtland Sutton wait until June 19th to have this pissing match over, a few $1 million? The guy's got 2 years left on his deal. Like, what's going on here? So I don't think things are going to work out with Courtland Sutton. I think the line has been drawn in the sand by the Broncos. Courtland has told you as much 2 weeks ago, just saying we're pretty far apart. But then Courtland's out there saying he wants to retire a Bronco and he wants to hoist the Lombardis. I don't get it. I mean, yeah, maybe that's just political speak. Maybe it's what you have to say into the microphone. Again, Courtland's a nice guy too, but Broncos aren't raising the Lombardi the next 2 years, Dylan. That's just not happening. So I don't understand why Courtland would want to be here. You put yourself in Courtland's position. It's, hey, Courtland, we got you a quarterback. Look, we drafted him. Hey, Courtland, look, we got you a free agent quarterback. Hey, Courtland, look, we traded for a quarterback. And none of it has really worked out. That's not to say that Courtland Sutton hasn't had his own faults, but I can kind of understand both sides. The timing of it, Dylan, I just don't get. They need to cut bait.
For me personally, I'm a big Courtland Sutton fan. I think a lot of it is too. I understand why he's scoring. It's like you mentioned. We brought in these quarterbacks. It hasn't really worked out, and obviously Sutton's had his injuries, and he looked good last season. I know the yards weren't there, but I put that more on Russell Wilson for not getting him the ball in certain spots. Obviously, he got the 10 touchdowns, and that's amazing. But when you're Courtland Sutton in the past 2 years now, you're hearing rumors of, oh yeah, this guy's getting traded for sure. We're going to trade him. Like, how's he supposed to feel? Does this team really want me? It's been, through multiple coaching regimes. Like, hey, yeah, you might be on your way out, but hey, we'll see what happens. We don't know what's up with your job security. Like,
who cares how he feels, Dylan? He's got a bag. He got paid. The Broncos, George Payton, right? And you're very right, Dylan. I mean, there's a human element in all this. Obviously, he cares because that's why the Broncos are at an impasse. So being facetious, I'm getting after you a little bit. But like, just to play devil's advocate, man, I mean, like the Broncos paid 2 wide receivers decent contracts and really haven't got all of that out of them. Now, a lot of that is the Broncos getting their own way, right? Not hiring the right head coach, not having the right quarterback, not having the right philosophy, the culture. It's just a mess, man. And if I'm Courtland Sutton, you're a Courtland Sutton fan, I want to see him do well. I thought he was a dog last year. He drove me crazy at times, right? But other times I'm like, dude, Courtland, this is like rookie year. What is going on here, man? We're looking great. If you're Courtland Sutton, I understand it. But why would you want to be here if you're Courtland Sutton? I just don't get it. You want to win Lombardis. Denver's not the place right now. 5 years? I don't know. A lot can happen in half a decade, maybe. But it's just so hard to say, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe, and I think he maybe he truly does like it here. He likes the area, and he likes the team. And obviously, it has been rough for him. I don't really think he's asking for much. I think he's not guaranteed. What is he guaranteed? $2 million this coming season?
Is that it? I thought it was
something like that.
Okay, I thought it was upwards of his salary. I thought was 13.
Well, because I know his salary is 13, but he's only guaranteed around 2. So if he wants to come play hard for the team, say he gets injured, okay, you're only guaranteed 2, and maybe we kick you to the curb. He just wants a couple extra million. He wants that security. He's a little older. But yeah, you take Sutton off this team, okay, you're down 10 touchdowns last year. How's that look? How much worse are the Broncos without him last year?
Oh,
so I hate, like, there's so many people being, oh, he played so good last season, but then when it comes to the contract stuff, they're like, oh, actually, he's kind of a bum. We don't really need him here, right? Do we? And it's like the 10 touchdowns worth. I know 700 yards. Yeah, I know it's not 1,000, but he was making plays out there, and I'm a big Courtland Sutton guy. That's
yeah, that's okay, Jill. Yeah. And no, and that there's nothing wrong with that, dude. Like you're not going to hear a huge argument out of me for who outworked Courtland Sutton the past few years, or you know what I mean? Like you're right. It's just it's tough. I think man, I know you're a diehard. I'm a diehard as well, but I think Courtland would benefit from a change of scenery. I really do. Right. And you're right, man. You see how many hundreds of thousands of people flocking to Colorado because it's a destination state. People want to live here. I get that as well. And Phil, to answer your question, Phil was like crowded running back room and wide receiver room, one name from each. Who will be gone week 1? I'll go Samaje Perine in the running back room. I don't see him making this team. I think you've got some young bucks on here that are ripe and ready to go. The wide receiver room, Dylan, what do you think, man? I like little Jordan Humphrey a lot. I think he's a serviceable guy. He's not quite a poor man's Courtland Sutton. He's a big dude. He can get the job done. But when I'm looking at that wide receiver room, man, I mean, Josh Reynolds was brought in. Marvin Mims, we want him to take a step. Tim Patrick? I mean, like, I hate to just go that route, but I don't know that Tim Patrick can make this team.
Yeah, so looking at the depth chart, the couple of roster breakdowns I've seen, we've had around 5 wide receivers on the 53. So what do we got? Say we get 5. We got Courtland, Josh Reynolds, Marvin Mims. I would say probably Troy Franklin and Tim Patrick. Maybe is that 5th guy. But like we saw last year, we had a bunch of wide receivers on the practice squad, whether it was Philip Dorsett, Bandy, David Sills, Jalen Virgil. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be more of a process where, hey, week to week, we can call a guy up. We're calling a guy up for a matchup. Hey, we need some more speed. Let's get Jalen Virgil up here. We need a little more height and jump ball versatility. We could get little Jordan in here, or maybe Devon Vele or whoever. So I think it might be just a week-to-week thing, and depending on how many wide receivers they decide to keep, whether it be 5 or 4, I think those remaining guys will hit the practice squad because, let's be real, who's going to pick up any of these guys from us? Because a couple of these guys have been here a few years, but I mean, you never know. They could go off, but I think realistically, we're keeping some of these guys on the practice squad. They're not going to get stolen away. So week to week matchup basis sort of thing.
That would make sense. And Michael Rinquillo, thank you so much for all the support, man. Just saying, great show tonight, Luke and Dylan on MHI, and go Broncos. We really appreciate that, Michael. You're always such a gentleman. You're so kind with all of your compassion, your time, your contributions. We really, really appreciate you. Would you expect Courtland Sutton to be at Jarrett Stidham's throwing thing, whatever that is? Because I wouldn't. If he wasn't going to show up to the voluntary portion of OTAs, for good reason, I suppose, right? Because you're exactly right. You could get hurt, and we've seen guys get hurt, and I think of Drew Sanders right away, right? Like, what's going on with Drew? Had to have that surgery. Non-contact related injury, those sorts of things. Tim Patrick, right? Courtland Sutton's been sitting there the last 2 years, as have I. Only Courtland's been even closer to watch Tim Patrick for those injuries. He's been on the field. And I mean, almost to the year, it was bizarre to be out there, Dylan. Maybe I'm starting to feel like I'm the jinx. Maybe I don't go to training camp this year and leave Tim Patrick alone. Lawrence Rivera coming in here. How dare you put that into the universe in my Greta Thunberg voice? Tim is the best wide receiver we have. How do you get there, Lawrence? I love you. You're my guy. But how is Tim Patrick the best wide receiver that the Broncos have? And homeboy hasn't played in what, 24 months? Longer than that? I don't know. 2 years. A lot changes in 2 years. And I get it. I like Tim too. And I'm sure Tim would want to come after me for hearing this. But that's why I don't wear Broncos stuff. I'm a Broncos fan. But my responsibility here on MHI, my responsibility here at MHH is to spit the truth and tell you what I see and how I see it. Doesn't mean you'll always like it. But I like Tim Patrick. This isn't about who I like. This is about who can get the job done. And I think so many times in our lives, we as human beings get so stuck on the people, the things that we like. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to work with people you don't always like. Sometimes that will make you better. I just don't know how Tim Patrick's the best wideout on this team, and he hasn't played in 2 seasons.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, he hasn't been on the field. So if we're just basing it off of when he cooked Trevon Diggs a couple of years ago, sure. I would take that. Yeah, right. God, just those injuries. I believe it was to his right side, but you tear an ACL and you tear an Achilles in the same leg. I saw a lot of reports that he's looking good in OTAs. Like, okay, that's great. He's running routes, and 30 months.
30 months, dude. I was being generous giving him the 24. Scott, thank you, man. And Scott and I have been talking about this as long as we've been together on the show for years. It's not a matter of liking Tim Patrick. It's a matter of his availability. I mean, we both liked him in college, but the fact of the matter was he wasn't always available. And that's why you saw his draft stock fall. That's why you see him coming out and being an underdog, and then he's able to fight and have that success. Now, do I want to root against him? No, I'm not doing it. And Lawrence coming in. Thank you, Lawrence. Really appreciate you coming back in. I asked you a question. Lawrence firing right back. He says, Tim Patrick is the best catcher we have. Look at drops versus catches. So that's maybe a good point, Lawrence. And I'm not going to rake you over the coals for that, but let's talk current. Are we talking from yesteryear or are we talking now? Now, drops are going to happen, and it's something you're going to see with Franklin. And I try to caution Broncos country a little bit. We're excited, right? Bo's got his bay for Morgan over here. Bo and Franklin, they're going to be besties forever, and they're right off in the sunset, and everything's going to be great. He's going to leave a little to be desired. There are going to be some boneheaded mistakes. There's going to be some learning curves, if you will, with this next wide receiver crop. And if a guy like Jerry Jeudy's struggling, I mean, you can expect some of these other guys to struggle a little bit as well. Mike E coming in here. Mike Edel, really appreciate you, man. Good evening, Luke, Dylan, and Scott. What's up, Broncos country? My thing with Courtland, is it just money, or is it not wanting to be here? Great show. Go MHI, go MHH, and go Broncos. I think Dylan's right. Dylan said he thinks it's a money thing. He's looking for security, and I've been on that as well. Look, Courtland got married, a year ago? I imagine he might want to start a family. I'm a dad. I'm a husband, right? Dylan, you've got a family. We all have families, and we all want our families to do well. We all want financial security. We all want health insurance. We all want the best for not only ourselves, but maybe that baby that's on the way. And no, I don't know. I'm not breaking any news here or anything. But you just start to look at it, and look, we live in a tough climate right now, not only in the United States, but the world. Things are more expensive than they ever have been. I'm not going to get political or anything like that, but yeah, man, you got to be out there scrapping for every dime. I know you are. I know I am. I mean, we're working 12-hour days here. Lots of folks, I work 2-3 different jobs. I know you do as well. Lots of people are trying to just make ends meet. And I'm not trying to be the ridiculous guy saying the NFL doesn't pay these guys enough. They do. They definitely do. But if I was Courtland Sutton, I'd want a bag too. I do think that he wants that money. I just wonder how much he really wants to be here. But then he says things like, I want to be in the Broncos Ring of Fame. I want to retire here. Well, do you? Because the Broncos are listening. Maybe you don't want to say that into the microphone. I don't know who his agent is, and I was making fun of it last week. I think it's Milk and Honey Sports is his sports agents when you actually look at it on Spot Rack. But I don't know, Dylan, the Courtland talk my ear. What do you think?
Yeah, it's got to be a money thing, and it's just it might depend on how much money he makes, but people, they look at that big, oh look what he's making 13 or 14 million this year, and it's like, okay, but what's guaranteed? That's what matters. I don't care about how big that pretty number at the end looks. You know how, like, with Randy Gregory, we had him 2 years. He wasn't getting paid his full contract. We know that. We should know better. And well, I do think Courtland played well enough to warrant a pay bump, because he was that offense last year. You take him out, are we getting those spectacular catches? Obviously, Russell Wilson was making some really great throws, but which other wide receiver on this team is coming away with those catches? Is Jerry Jeudy? No, and that doesn't make sense either. He went to Cleveland. He got paid for doing what? Nothing. Next to nothing.
That's Cleveland, though. That's Cleveland. Yeah. Look at what they do. They pay everybody. I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't talk here in Broncos country, right? You look at Russell Wilson, you look at Mike McGlinchey, you look at the right tackle. It's hard for me to want to throw shade at Cleveland, but damn it, it's just something about being a member of Broncos country, right? It's those damn Browns. And Papa Bear coming in here. Great show, guys. He's calling his shot, man. I love it. David's unapologetic with it. And it was awesome. Dylan and I got to hang out with David at the MHH meet and greet last year, have a couple of cold pops. Hope we get to do it again this season. Really, really appreciate the support. 12-5. Papa Bear, get back at me. 12-5. Who's the starting quarterback in that? Is it Bo Nix or is it Jarrett Stidham? It's got to be Bo Nix, right? Because I don't see my guy coming out there being like, this is the year of Jarrett Stidham. I will ask you this, because we like to poke fun at Russ. We like to have some Russell Wilson watch, and we might even have some Russell Wilson watch when the Steelers and the Broncos square off. What is that, in week 2? Here in Denver. Who starts first in the 2024 season? Russell Wilson with the Pittsburgh Steelers or Bo Nix with the Denver Broncos?
If I had to pick,
isn't that tough? Two, that's a tough one, right?
It's a little tough, but I think I'd have to think it's Russell Wilson, just because I know I don't. I'm not.
Almost made me spit out my drink, Dylan. Like, damn, but you could be right.
It's more like I think both could start at the same time. If we're talking about odds, I would probably have to go with Russell, because I've heard Justin Fields isn't looking so accurate in camp, and he's not looking good. That's kind of what you saw with the Bears there, and obviously offensive coordinator wasn't great, and now he's with the offensive coordinator. I believe it's Luke Getsy. He's with the Raiders now, so that's a win there. All right. But I do think Pittsburgh feels the need to start with Russ first. I don't, because you can always go to Justin Fields afterwards. I think you can start the young guy when you need that spark. But I think with an entrenched a veteran, I won't say Hall of Fame anymore. I don't know if that's on the table anymore. But I think Russell Wilson would definitely have to start there in Pittsburgh, especially Mike Tomlin. He might be a little impatient. Like, he's made the playoffs and whatnot with lesser quarterbacks, and I think he thinks Russ can get them there.
Well, maybe I missed something too, because Scott's in my ear saying Russell's already been named number 1 even after Fields was traded. So Mike Tomlin, man, there's not a lot of mystery there when it comes to Mike Tomlin. He pretty much makes it known what he wants to do, and obviously he has. So there's that. How about this? I'll spin it a different way. Who starts more games, Russell Wilson or Bo Nix? Interesting conversation when you consider the Justin Fields arrival to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You consider Sean Payton's I don't want to say love, but he's really liked Jarrett Stidham. He just had to have him last free agency. We're all scratching our heads like, man, you backed up the truck for this guy. And it was actually kind of a wise move when you think about it. And you look at the quarterback market continually reset. And Dylan, I know you're a numbers guy. I mean, the quarterback market isn't going down. It's only going up. So you were able to get a Jarrett Stidham at what looks like a better deal today in 2024 than it did in 2023. I have to believe that Bo Nix starts more games than Russell Wilson. Why? Just because the future should be a little brighter for Bo Nix. I think people are going to be willing to give Bo Nix the benefit of the doubt when he throws a pick six, when he fumbles the ball, when he gets sacked. I'm hoping it's not a lot. But when you look at Russell Wilson, if the same sort of bad stuff, and I'm cleaning it up here for podcasting too, that same sort of bad stuff is happening, not one franchise, not two cities, but 3 NFL clubs, I think Steelers Nation and that diehard faithful of black and gold are going to be looking at the Rooneys and Mike Tomlin like, yo, let's go to the young guy from Chicago. Let's see what this Ohio State quarterback looks like, because Ohio State quarterbacks, I mean, doing okay. Just ask CJ Stroud down there in Houston. I ultimately think that Bo Nix should start more games than Russell Wilson in 2024. Should.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement there. Bo, if it's not week 1, it better be soon after, because you talk about the pressure of a rookie quarterback. What about the pressure of the fans putting on Stidham? Every mistake he makes, throws a pick, an incompletion, third down, he throws short of the sticks, anything like that, there's going to be a lot of pressure on not just Stidham, but the coaching staff. There's going to be an uproar. And I know Payton, he doesn't really care about the media, but at some point you're going to have to give in to that. I see Russell Wilson, like you mentioned, if he makes mistakes like he did last year, maybe Tomlin's not willing to put up with that. And he's like, hey, you know what? I got a younger version of this guy sitting behind him, but he's a little taller. So that maybe that's a plus there. Less experience, but he's going to be quicker. His arm's probably going to be a little better. We'll see. I don't know. Russell's got a pretty good arm, but I think Bo Nix could definitely start more games than Russell Wilson, especially like you look who's behind Bo potentially. Stidham and Zach Wilson are those guys. Like I mentioned earlier, it's not like you have an Alex Smith on the roster or like a Matt Stafford or something, and you have someone sitting behind him. It's guys that Bo Nix should be able to stave off.
Well, and it's Bo Nix's job to lose, really. I mean, he should go out there and take Broncos country. What better impression could Bo Nix make than to go out there and be the undisputed QB1? Not because we're saying he should be, but because we can all see it at training camp. Now, maybe that's unrealistic of us to expect that. Maybe it's unrealistic of us to want that out of a kid who's never taken an NFL rep. And I hate using the word kid, by the way. He's a grown man. I should stop calling him a kid. He's young and he's green, but he's a grown man. He's over 18, right? You can fight in the service, fight in the wars, then you're a grown man. I hope that Bo Nix takes advantage of this offseason. I hope that he takes advantage of this dead time right now. Whereas I asked you, what's Sean Payton doing on Wednesday, June 19th? I hope Bo Nix is working out. I hope Bo Nix is in the playbook. I hope Bo Nix is talking to his teammates. I hope he's taking snaps from whoever the center is. It's just like it's Bo Nix's to lose. And I can think of nothing more exciting than Broncos country coming through those doors at training camp, scanning their cell phones to get in, getting their free little bottle of water, and then seeing, what is it, number 10? Is that Bo Nix's number now? Number 10 out there is the undisputed QB1. I want to hear James Palmer when he's talking. I want to hear Adam Schefter talking about Bo Nix seizing this opportunity. I don't want this to just be given to him because Sean Payton handpicked him.
Yeah, I got caught myself last week talking about Bo Nix. I was like, he's a young kid, and I was like, oh shoot, he's the same age as me. Never mind, I can't be calling him kid.
You guys are old men. Yeah, you're an old man like me. I'm not 26 though, right? Is he 26? Is that how old you guys are?
24.
24.
I'd be a little more worried if he was 26. Oh my gosh.
You guys are young bucks, and I'm essentially Russell Wilson, right at 33, just turned 33. So that's what we're looking at. So Dylan, the future, me, the past, at least maybe you look at Broncos Steelers. Guys, this has been MHI. He is Scott, my guy. I love this one too, because Scott's like, I could call Bo Nix a kid. I went to college with his dad. And always
Yeah.
like to give Scott that good Auburn, Alabama beef. It's always so fun, man, to razz those Southerners. Because, dude, I like to think we're all about football. I played for Dave Logan here, right, in Colorado, voice of the Broncos and everything. Man, this state does not know football like the South knows football, dude. I see that 10 out of 10 times. I know you're out there on the West Coast, Dylan, same sort of thing. But no, this has been a fun show, man. Guys, you could catch Dylan on X at Dylan Von Arcs MHH. Slide into his DMs, talk about Courtland Sutton football. He will always get back to you. Yours truly as well at Luke Patterson LP. If you'd like to reach out to Scott, that's at Scout Kennedy. We'd really appreciate it if you followed the mothership at Mile High Huddle. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com. You can read an article up about Mark Schlereth's comments about Bo Nix and why Bo Nix need to be starting. If he's not starting, maybe it's an indictment that Bo Nix wasn't the guy Sean Payton thought he was. You can read about that and more. If you did not get enough of DVA tonight, don't worry. He's coming back on Dove Valley Deep Divers on Friday night at 6 p.m. Mountain. And if you want to go for that Triple Crown with Dylan, hit up Saturday night, OBV with Ron White every 6 p.m. Mountain on Saturday. Should be good pods, man. I really appreciate you filling in for Tom. Fun show. We got to chop it up. It's never a dead season. There's never an off season here in Broncos country. So we just keep rocking and rolling. Fun show, Dylan. Thank you.
Yeah, man, it was great talking with you. I always feel like I matched the energy of my co-host, so I was a little more riled up today, which is good. I think that's great for conversation, just keeping things lively. So always good talking with you, Luke.
No, you're doing great, man. Dylan's just kicking so much ass over here at milehighhuddle.com. I've been reading your articles, been seeing you on the pods, man. I would really encourage everybody, give Dylan a follow over on X and look out for all of his new work. Could also be some potential new news coming down the pipe. You never know. Scott, he's going to be back on Broncos for Breakfast real soon. Hang out, watching his guy, Nick Kendall, as well. He's so ornery. I see that guy over on X, man. That's my dude, Nick Kendall, right there. We appreciate everybody on this show. Thank you so much. The Mile High Huddle podcast should be back tomorrow night. Shout out to Chad, who's on the road right now. I want to give him some good luck and good vibes for some good tunes. And always try to give those shout outs. Broncos country, no problems, no bad news, just good news. Heading into June 20th, this is the way.
This is the way.